Welcome to In Their Shoes. My name is Rich Pulice. I'm a professor of public health at Regis College and the president of Heart Sounds US, located here in Marlborough, Massachusetts. For those of you who've been with us before in Their Shoes, you know we've been talking about a variety of topics, international and local, and we're going to continue some of that today. We're going to return to some of the mental health topics we talked about, but today we want to talk about a local and international problem. Regardless of where you live in the world, regardless of where you are, whether you're in Marlborough, Massachusetts, New York City, or Kampala, Uganda, you're going to find that there's a problem with homeless women, and that's what we'd like to address today. I'm very glad to have with me today as our guest, Mark Vitale, who's the president of the Marlborough Rotary Club, among other things. Mark, welcome to In Their Shoes.
I'm excited to be here.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your connection to Marlborough, and what's up?
I was born at Marlborough Hospital. My mom, being in a sense Catholic, she was praying for a daughter. I have 3 older brothers, and I was kidding around with her that I was a disappointment from birth. But born right up there at Marlborough Hospital, Dr. Temple, who was a namesake person here for many, many years, grew up through the school systems, graduated Marlborough High in the class of 1979. I believe it's the second largest class, graduated from there.
Wow.
Got an ROTC scholarship, went to Clark. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And at that time, Clark University in Worcester was one of the best in the country as far as psychology was concerned. Got my degree, went into the Army, and I just loved it. I really did enjoy my tenure, 4 years in the Corps of Engineers, doing projects all over the West Coast. It was great. But was homesick. Came back to Marlborough. Been here ever since. Outside of those 4 years in the Army, I've pretty much been in Marlborough, working various jobs, some in Worcester, some locally. For many years, I was a teacher and a coach at Marlborough High School. Now I've been a teacher and a coach and at the Advanced Math and Science Academy right here on the other side of town. About 3 or 4 years ago, they created a job for me called Community Outreach Manager. So I do a lot of community relations as part of my job.
Terrific.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you got a busy time, including now you're the president of Marlborough Rotary.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about what the Rotary's up to.
Well, the Rotary's been around. We just celebrated 100 years of service here in Marlborough, which is pretty amazing if you put things in perspective. 100 years of helping those in need here in Marlborough. The Rotary's always been there to provide food and shelter and just about anything they could do over that century. Rotary was founded in 1905 by Paul Harris out in Chicago. Today, it's up to 1.4 million Rotarians around the globe. Great story. Well, a couple good stories about Rotary. One is that we've almost eradicated polio. We had it down to one. The Rotary's probably purchased tens of millions of vaccines to eradicate polio, and it always seems to, just when you think it's completely gone, it pops its evil head up again.
Yeah, I've seen those cases across the world again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we're still leading the way in that and trying to eradicate polio. The other thing that's kind of new and kind of neat is there's 23 Rotary clubs in Ukraine. When the Russians were building up forces along the eastern border, the Rotaries in Ukraine were already reaching out to Rotary clubs across New England, Poland, Romania in particular, and asking them to send supplies. So they were actually, the Rotaries of Ukraine were actually building up supplies for locals even before the Russians came into, started on the attack. And they've been continuing to get to, the Rotary International has given tens of millions of dollars to Ukraine for humanitarian aid. And it's just kind of proud. I'm proud to be part of a global organization that is constantly working on disease and on water and peace, just promoting peace around the world.
Right.
It's kind of cool to be part of that.
Well, and it's wonderful, all the groups that have stepped up, particularly groups like Rotary, to help out in Ukraine.
Yes.
Getting things done that need to get done that would not otherwise get done.
That's right.
And here in Marlborough, Rotary plays a major role, along with many other service organizations, Lions, and we're hoping the Kiwanis is still out there.
Yes.
Knights of Columbus, St. Vincent de Paul.
Another initiative that I started up, and it's going to happen. It's kind of fun to know, it always troubled me that if you go to my LinkedIn page, I call myself a partnership extraordinaire because I'm always looking to partner with various organizations. So I talked with Randy Scott. Everyone knows Randy, the owner of Main Street Cafe, and he's
Sure.
a past Lion. He's still a Lion, but a past president, and a district governor or just some district position. And I said, imagine if all the organizations that have similar missions, meaning service, the Eagles, the Junior Women's Club, all these organizations try to provide services to the needy in the Greater Marlborough area. I said, imagine if we could come together and do a joint project. And right now we have 6 organizations that have met a couple times: the Lions, the Eagles, the Junior Women's Club, the Masons, the Moose, Rotary, 6 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to try to put together a family fun day down at Ward Park next year.
Terrific.
With entertainment and, just bring back that family atmosphere into Marlboro that I grew up, having a lot of.
Yeah, and the service that these organizations, especially Rotary, provide is just phenomenal when you look at it. And that's sort of going to move us a little bit towards a discussion I'd love to have today. So you, President of Rotary, founded a new coalition. Tell us about the coalition that exists here in Marlboro.
Again, it's all about partnerships. The gospel talks many different places how Christians should join forces to help help your neighbor. It's the second most important commandment that that if one is Christian, they believe in. And I said, and I see all these churches around Marlboro, almost on every block there's another church.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, again, imagine if we could come together and address a major issue. The major issue that I saw, and I can explain to you how it really opened up my eyes here locally, was homelessness. So I got a bunch of emails, like 40 different emails of different churches around Greater Marlborough, and I sent out a list saying, let's start up this Greater Marlborough Interfaith Coalition against hunger and homelessness.
Okay.
And we were meeting a little, I think twice a month. Now we're meeting once a month, and we're trying to address the issues on all the issues that impact those who are hungry and those who are homeless. Okay. And we meet, and we've already made some some great advances. I wish more churches were involved because I
was going to ask you, what was the response about how many of the churches are working with us?
6 is what I would say are active, but they're very active. I mean, they're this sounds dramatic, but they're almost saving lives by their efforts that they provide. St. Matthias, IC, Holy Trinity, Greater Grace. I mean, there's just some great churches here in town that really try to live the gospel, and that's the key.
Well, what we're going to hope for is more churches get involved, particularly if they're listening to us today.
I hope so.
But I know I participated in some of your meetings, and some very exciting stuff happening. It was great to see the group come together. So tell me a little bit about what's occurred with the coalition now.
Sure. Well, the first thing we did was we talked about a shelter. So we brought in guest speakers, one from Laconia, Laconia, New Hampshire, who put together a family shelter up there, and they talked about their struggles to do so. We brought in one of the founders of the Interfaith Coalition of Worcester, actually runs a homeless shelter. The council actually runs it by the churches. And they were our guest speakers. So I think at first we just wanted to kind of get our hands around the issue of a potential shelter. Yeah. We also have we have a number of members in the community, Jim Ash and Six Marie Rodriguez, she is responsible for family housing for SMOC. Yeah. So she comes we also have representatives from the Extended Stay Hotel. So we started talking about, what are the main issues? And as I was starting this, I also was exposed to 2 of my students from Marlborough High, 2 women, young women, who were homeless.
Wow. Okay.
And I could tell you, one of them told me, they went one time. It was raining, and they went down to Galoni Park because they thought the bathrooms would be open and it would be heated down there. When she got there, they weren't open, so she spent the night underneath the cold rain. She said, underneath the slide at Galoni Park, hoping that no one saw her. These stories are out there. There's a lot of them. And, I used to teach English. And one of my favorite books to teach was The Christmas Carol. And in the end of the second act, I don't know if you remember, but the Ghost of Christmas Present was turning old and throughout the scene. And at the very end, Scrooge looks at the apparition and says, well, whose feet are those below your robe? And he says, they're children. He said, your children? And he goes, the children of mankind.
Wow, okay.
And then he says to him, he goes, the boy is ignorance and the girl is want. Beware them both. But on the brow of the boy, I see doom. And that's ignorance. And sometimes, people in Marlborough, they don't mean to, but they drive right by the homeless and don't even see them.
Yeah.
And what Charles Dickens was saying in 1850, London, unfortunately, still happens today in our world.
Yeah, I've been involved with homeless programs over the years, and sadly, we're still having the same conversations.
Yes.
And so there's no homeless shelter for women in Marlborough.
None.
Yeah.
There's only one homeless shelter between Worcester and Boston, and that's in Ashland. And it's almost entirely full. I mean, if you're lucky enough to call and, like we had one of the women that came through one of the churches, we got a hold of them and they said, oh yeah, we'll have a bed available in 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So what is a homeless woman supposed to do for one of those 2 weeks? Well, we addressed that. And the extended stay hotel here in town gave us, we negotiated a rate that is significantly reduced. And now if a woman and her children are homeless, and the men, for every 1 bed for women, there are 3 beds for men. And that's just a fact. That's not me. There's no hyperbole there.
And that's a nationwide and worldwide problem. We somehow see that homeless men, whether it's because they're visible on the streetway, we have to help them. But women are sort of invisible to us.
Yeah, they sure are. Back to that ignorance thing. I don't think we want, I think as a society, we don't want to see our women homeless.
Yeah.
So
and these are often women with children.
And they are.
Yeah.
And they have other, both of my students had issues of substance abuse, serious issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the way it works, I mean, there's more women. And I try, and let me explain. So I always tell people, there's equal amount of men and women, right? And everyone says yes. I said, who between the two are more likely to become homeless because of a domestic issue? And of course, it would be women.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and I didn't understand this until the student who's really opened my eyes, I helped her and she has helped me just be a better Christian and be a better person. She said, Mr. Vital, everybody works the list when they become homeless. So if you become homeless, you call your brother, hey, my wife threw me out. Can I stay at your place for a couple of weeks? A month later, he throws you out, and you go to the next person and call your friend and say, hey, my brother just threw me out. And you work your list.
So the couch surfing, they call it, right?
Yeah, it sure is, right? Yeah. So, but women have so everyone does it, but women have a significantly smaller list. Not because they have less friends, because they're worried about safety. Mm-hmm. If they leave an issue of domestic, or even if they don't, if they just become homeless, if they go to a house where there's a man that they don't know, the student of mine said, there's this whole issue of quid pro quo. I'm helping you out, so you have to help me out.
Yeah.
So there's a safety issue. So they don't, a lot of times, they may know the wife or the female in the household, and if they were alone, they would say, could I stay at your place? But they don't say it because there's a man at the house.
Oh, I understand now, yeah.
So not only are there more women because of domestic issues, but their list is significantly smaller than that of a man.
Yeah. So based on what the coalition is doing now, someone can get a hotel for a few days?
Yes. We work through the churches. The churches, St. Matthias, the St. Vincent de Paul, that's St. Matthias, and then the Immaculate Conception. I've actually contacted her name is Anderson I can't remember her first name, but she's the head of the St. Vincent de Paul at St. Michael's in Hudson.
Okay.
And I let them know, and as well as anyone who's participating, whether it's Holy Trinity or Greater Grace, and told them that, look, if somebody, a parishioner or just a stranger, comes to you and says that they're homeless or on the verge of becoming homeless, please help. They can contact me and work their way. We have a separate portal, if you will, into the extended stay that gives us the reduced rate.
Yeah. And
the Marlborough Rotary now will reimburse any church up to 7 days and meals. Stevie's Eatery over in Hudson started a nonprofit last year called Feed the Neighbor. So if we place anyone in extended stay and they don't have meals, Stevie will bring them a hot meal.
Yeah, well, full disclosure, my wife is the president of St. Vincent de Paul St. Matthias.
Yes,
So I'm glad to hear so
th-
many of the things and lots of phone calls and lots of conversations back and forth. But you're raising a really important point. It's not just about we found you a place to sleep, but now you need to eat.
now you need to eat.
Now you need to eat, and and you need to make sure your kids are taken care of and that you're safe.
Yes.
So it sounds like the program, as it exists now over at Extended Stay, gets somebody off the street
Yes.
for 3, 4, 5 nights.
Yep. Up to 7.
Up to 7. Gets them some food. I don't know. Stevie's been great, and we need more Stevies in the world.
That's sure right.
Like we need more Mark Vitals in the world as well. And so now we got them safe. Right? What happens after that?
Well, those churches that are involved in the Interfaith Coalition now know Six Marie, who is a great bridge or liaison into the South Middlesex Occupational Council, the SMOC network, if you will.
Okay.
And they run numerous, like I say, men's shelters and one women's shelter and many family programs, transitional homes.
Right.
So if a woman has children, they kind of go to the top of the list in priority.
Yeah.
If they have children, I would guess they would probably be 3 days on the street, and then they would have an apartment or some form of transitional housing.
Yeah.
Then come men, because there's just more beds for men. And then, unfortunately, that single woman. Now, we just, at the last meeting, we found out about this new program through SMOC that pays for housing for women, single women, but they have to be 24 and under.
Yeah.
And they can pay the housing directly to a local kid. There's a I'm not going to mention the location of it. We did at the meeting, but there's a residence here in Marlborough that takes in single women.
Yeah.
And it's locked, and it doesn't. And thank God for the landlord, as you were talking about Stevie's. The landlord probably could make a whole lot more money if she wanted to.
Yeah.
But she has I think she has 8 beds in her home. For single women, and it's a locked facility.
Yeah.
So
you raise a really important point here. A lot of the women are victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
They're escaping unsafe conditions, and a lot of the women leave because they want their children to be safe. So that facility that we're both familiar with has to be kept sort of secret.
Yes.
Has to be locked, because oftentimes people are accosted by the very person that they're trying to escape from because they can find them.
That's right.
So this is a really important link here in all the different things we do, and a great addition to what's available in Marlborough. To our international listeners, in case you're not aware, we have not-for-profit organizations. We have churches that really reach out. I know that in some of the countries that I worked in, like the Netherlands and Belgium, the government takes on the role. Right. So we're really reliant on the groups that support the coalition. We're reliant on Rotary Club to get these things done. So I know Rotary Club has done something really fantastic recently in terms of acquiring money. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the way the Rotary works is that, the president-elect, what I was last year, gets a ton of training on management issues and strategic planning and fundraising and social media and the whole 9 yards. And then you become president. And as president, you get to select one project that the whole Rotary Club, the club that they're the president of, gets behind. Yeah. And mine is this thing called Rotary Homestead. Okay. And the Rotary Homestead is twofold. One is to provide, as I mentioned earlier, seven days of emergency housing with food. And then we also have, because they gave us some money, the Rotary Club of Southborough and the Rotary Club of Hudson gave us $1,000 each. We raised $3,000. And then the Rotary District, 9410, gave us $5,000. So we have $10,000 to help with this project. We also are in the process of putting together care kits. These care kits will either be issued by the church themselves, the churches that are working with us, or the hotel. The hotel is going to give us a closet that we can store them in, so that when a woman gets referred to the extended stay and she enters her room, there will be a really cool thing. We call them care kits, but it's basically 25 items that every woman would want. And it's important for us at the Rotary to support women, not homeless women.
Okay.
And they say, well, isn't it the same thing? And I said, well, I want them to feel like when they go into extended stay and they're feeling the support and the love that they're receiving from the referral church, whoever it might be, and even the Rotary,
Yeah.
that they address the issues that they need to address in order not to become homeless again.
It's we're hearing this sort of transition and saying we need to help the whole person.
Yes.
It's not just about getting you a roof over your head. It's not just about providing the meal, but these care kits sound like, making you have the things that you need to have to survive from day to day.
Right.
I know one of the
And
projects.
feel like a woman, and
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just that pride and dignity that every woman should have.
Yeah, and as you point out, issues for homeless women are different. There's all kinds of issues that go on, whether it's different products that a woman might need, support that she needs for her children, and maybe different things that men can survive without.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what the Rotary is doing is terrific. So we raise money here in Marlborough through the Rotary in Marlborough, the Rotary in Hudson,
and the Rotary in Southborough.
and the Rotary in Southborough. Great news from all three of those.
Yeah, isn't it?
And then the district gives money.
Yes, the district matches if you're fortunate enough to get it. I mean, there are many clubs who apply for grants and don't get it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the 6 missions for Rotary is women and children. So I knew that they can't say that this is important and not necessarily. So, and then the long-term goal, I never mentioned my long-term goal. We have 2 different, so we have the money that separated the $10,000 grant money for emergency services, but we're also trying to put money, and we've already started, putting money on a separate bank account for the Rotary Homestead, which hopefully will be a women's shelter here in Marlboro.
Rotary Homestead. So that's the name you gave it.
Yes.
It has great meaning. I think for people's comfort and saying this is something to support me, something that's going to help me out. So we go to the district, and it's Rotary International, right? Isn't that what?
That's the organization that there's 3 levels, if you will, of the Rotary. There's the local club, then there's the district, which is we're part of a district of 50 clubs, and then it just goes right to Rotary International, which is in 103 or 107 different countries.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite amazing. I know I'm going to be in Uganda in January, and one of the places I'm going to be speaking is the Rotary Club in Kampala.
I don't know, maybe it's the same one.
Yeah.
We Rotary, when you travel internationally, you probably know that you can go to the local Rotary and be a guest of honor, if you will. Well, we had maybe 2 months ago, 2 women that were in a Rotary Club in Uganda. Great. They came and visited us, and then we found out that it was a whole lot cheaper to send pack. We gave her 4, or was it more than that? It might have been 6 giant suitcases filled with children's books and clothing, and she brought it back to the schools that her Rotary supports.
Great.
In this part of Uganda, and we have amazing pictures. You could see all these kids are opening up their children's books, and you can see the smile ear to ear, because they don't have these types of things in Uganda. And we're hoping to partner with them through an international grant. This was next year, to build them. My dream is to build a school for girls. In Uganda, it costs $50. In this part of Uganda, I don't know if it's the whole country, but in this part of Uganda, it costs $50 to send your kid to school. You just pay $50. The families are so poor that they only send their sons.
Yeah.
So if you see these classrooms, they got 50 boys in this classroom, not one girl.
Yeah.
So I would, I don't know. I would love to be able to say that we started a girls' school.
Well, it sounds like a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, sure is.
We're going to have someday. One of my prepared questions is why Rotary? But I think we sort of got an answer to that. So what do you think needs to happen next in a community like Marlboro or other places around the world?
First of all, I think we need to open the eyes of folks to say that, and it's going to get worse, right? I mean, if you've been reading the local newspaper, the electric bill is going to go up 65% this winter.
Yeah.
Oil and gas is going to double from last year. So unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of seniors and working poor parents who have to make a decision: do I heat the house or do I eat? Because
And that's a real decision.
That's a tough decision.
Yeah.
That's a real tough decision. So, Rotary, and the other thing we're trying to do is and the next step is to create like this service council of all those different service organizations that I mentioned earlier. If it gets to a point where there are seniors that need food delivered to them, the Rotary will jump at it, but it'd be significantly more effective if the Lions and the Junior Women's Club and the Eagles and the Rotary all work together because I think it's going to be, I hope I'm dead wrong, but I think this winter is going to be a very bad winter for a lot of people.
Everything we're seeing sort of predicts that increased energy costs. So gasoline's gotten a little bit cheaper, but we're still paying $3.50 a gallon for gasoline.
Well, many of our homeless live in their cars.
Yeah.
Right. So right now it's not a big issue. They can park somewhere. They can fall asleep in the back seat. Not a big issue. Once the cold weather comes, they're going to have to turn the car on to keep warm, and with the price of gasoline, they'll run out.
And not to mention the safety issue of living in your car. Well, it sounds like a tremendous amount of stuff going on, not only in Marlborough but the surrounding communities as well. And I'm hoping that for the folks listening to our podcast, that they've learned something about where we can go. What we do know, if I can sort of cap the message, is the issue for women is different than for men.
Very much so.
We've really done a much better job, if better is the right word, in supporting men than we have women. In a community like Marlborough, and organizations like Rotary reaching out is really what's going to make the difference.
At least a difference. I don't know if we're going to solve the problem, but we're going to be helping to address the problem. That's
well,
for sure.
I've been around this field for about 40 years. Things are getting better.
Good.
Things are getting better. The pandemic has, gotten in the way, but it's organizations like Rotary, people like yourself, and other people that we've talked about today during our podcast that I think are really going to make a difference.
We mentioned before the start of the podcast, we're blessed to be in a community that really is very generous. I run I actually run a nonprofit organization called Sweats for Vets.
Oh, okay.
And it's this will be our 11th year. And last year I delivered over 2,000 new Boston team sweatshirts to homeless veterans all around New England, into New York, Philly, North Carolina, and Michigan. And probably of all that costs, right? So if you talk $2,000 and a hoodie costs you somewhere between $30 and $40, it's a lot of money. And the vast majority of it comes from organizations here in Marlborough.
Wow.
It's amazing how Marlborough comes
So
out.
when do you sleep?
From the 1st of November to the 1st of the year, I don't sleep too much, that's for sure.
Perfect. Well, Mark, obviously we could go on all day for this one, but and I really hope that I can have you come back as a guest.
All right, love it.
Guest again. I've been talking today to Mark Vital, who's the president of the Marlborough Rotary Club and the Greater Marlborough Coalition that deals with hunger and homelessness. My name is Rich Pulice, professor of public health at Regis College and the president of Heart Sounds US, which provides services in Uganda and currently in Eastern Europe. I want to encourage you to have your friends take a look at this podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, and Anchor FM. So until next time, keep the faith, keep looking for good things to do, and please visit us again at In Their Shoes. Have a great day.